Welcome to TYT Interviews. We've got a great interview guy about LeBron James today. So LeBron, no, all right, fine, he's not on. But it is about LeBron James. Tariq Touré came up with a really interesting idea. He's an activist out of Baltimore. He's also an essayist and a poet and an educator, which I like. He mentors at-risk African-American kids and is part of the Male Enterprise Network as well. That's a nonprofit that promotes building relationships with young minority entrepreneurs and professionals. So he does all this stuff, and he came up with an idea called #NoJusticeNoLeBron. Now, even though Tariq is from Baltimore, this is about Cleveland because Tamir Rice, 12-year-old, was shot, as you all know, in Cleveland in 2 seconds flat. And the prosecutor, as I explained on the Young Turks, threw the case. He purposely and almost bragged about it, about how he presented evidence in favor of the defense, even though he's the prosecutor, in a grand jury. Absolutely outrageous. Now, perhaps the most powerful man in Cleveland is LeBron James. So that's where Tariq comes into play here with this idea. So tell us about it. What does #NoJusticeNoLeBron mean?
Essentially, it just means that LeBron James leads a collective sit-out either on MLK Day or whatever game he decides to have a collective sit-out, with his other franchise players or the players on his team or whatever amount of athletes that want to participate in that, just to show solidarity with the family of Tamir Rice first, and also with the other victims that are undergoing police brutality and dying at the hands of state-sanctioned violence.
So first thing you're going to run into is people say, hey, that's not his job. So, leave basketball and entertainment out of this. It's a completely different sphere. How do you answer that?
I would first say that when LeBron James, when he signed his remarkable deal with Nike, you had so many people laud his business capabilities. They were saying LeBron James he's such an awesome businessman. When he's giving charity, they'll say, he's such a compassionate person. He's brilliant for business. But when it comes to social justice and his thoughts about that, for some reason that brilliance stops. So I believe that, when we try to box these black athletes into what we want them to be, it stops us from actually having them participate in efforts like this that may show, a sense of urgency with what's going on in the country. And I think it would be no better time than now for somebody such as himself to participate.
Yeah, but it's not like athletes have ever done any protests before, have they?
Oh, no. We have we definitely in the black community, we have a very rich history in protest. And in an article that I wrote addressing LeBron James, I discussed Paul Robeson's stances and critical stances against the United States in the McCarthy era, where he lost citizenship, he lost money, and he lost, a lot of the relationships that he had built throughout his, his football career and also his performance career.
Yeah, that's incredible courage. In comparison to that, to sit out one game or 5 games, I know, like, this place would go nuclear. America would lose their minds if they did that, if he did that. But it's really nothing compared to what Robeson did, let alone Jesse Owens, obviously with, the Black Glove protests in the Olympics, and Jim Brown, who, by the way, as you point out, are both from Cleveland. So it's not just athletes, it's black athletes from Cleveland who have a long and great history of actually bringing this issue to the forefront. Now, I think that the next set of criticism you would get, because of course it's Twitter, it's social media, all you get is criticism, is, hey, wait a minute though, what are you trying to drive at here? If LeBron does that, I mean, it's not the Cleveland Cavalier owner's fault, it's not their fans' fault, so what do you want them to do about it?
I think first and foremost, us as a republic and a democratic nation, we take pride in, the collective responsibility of all the affairs, whether they be in impoverished areas, whether they be in suburbia, wherever it is. So I think that, himself having nothing to do with the police department and their behavior, him having nothing to do with, the family of Tamir Rice, other than just being somebody that Tamir Rice may have looked at as, and idolized, for him to say, hey, I have a responsibility to shed light on this certain issue. And I also have a responsibility to bring, my other colleagues into shedding light on this, this urgent issue that's going on right now with police killings.
So, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. I totally agree with you. And in fact, the day that we found out the grand jury was not going to indict the officer that killed Tamir Rice. Again, Tamir Rice had a toy gun, and they didn't bother to ask him if he had a toy gun. They just pulled up and shot him. You can't do anything in 2 seconds other than pull up and shoot somebody. And so on that day, I said, look, LeBron James should sit out, because if it's not LeBron, who is it? Is anybody else in Cleveland going to do a goddamn thing about it? Unfortunately, the answer is no, and the authorities in Cleveland have decided it's okay. The prosecutor said it was reasonable. The prosecutor said it was reasonable to kill that kid in 2 seconds flat. So if that's the policy in Cleveland, and you went all the way back to Cleveland for your hometown and stuff, I think that as one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful person in Cleveland, it's on you to stand up and say, hey, I don't want my 12-year-old son killed in 2 seconds flat. I don't want your 12-year-old son killed in 2 seconds flat. Now, having said all that, does he bear an extra responsibility since he's an African-American leader in that community?
Oh, absolutely. If I recall, when LeBron James decided to leave and go to the Miami Heat, his jersey was burned by fans for a few days. And I think that just, pays tribute to, the level of, respect and, the level of love that the people of Cleveland have for him. That being said, people come home from work, long, arduous days, toiling at work. People may not even, have jobs in Cleveland. And they wait till 8:30 at night when, he blazes across the TV screen and he does his thing on the court and scores over 40 points and hits triple doubles. And that's a sort of, a relaxing moment for these people. It's a relief from the conditions that they live in. If he decides not to play one day or some days, that will, alarm people, I believe, to say, look, the person that I adore on the basketball court has decided not to play because we have a crisis occurring in our city and in our country. And I think that having that level of comfort disrupted will wake a lot of people up and have them start paying attention. We have an indifference issue right now going on in the country where people don't care whether or not people are being indicted or not indicted. It doesn't matter to them because it doesn't affect their day-to-day lives. Well, millions of people watch LeBron James and so many other athletes every night. And like I said, it's relief for them. And to not have that, it's definitely going to strike a chord.
Yeah, the best point you make that I think is nearly indisputable is if he does, even if he sets out just one game, whether it's on MLK Day or another day, it'll grab people's attention. They will definitely talk about that. Some people will be mad, some people will be appreciative, but it will shine a light on, hey, why on God's green earth did they kill this kid in 2 seconds flat? And so on that alone, I feel like he's got to do it because, if you don't do that, what do you do? And I get it too. It's probably going to really piss off a lot of sponsors, a lot of fans in Cleveland. And let's keep it real. There's going to be at least half the city who agrees with the cops. Hey, man, I don't know, man. It's a black person or maybe had a gun, maybe didn't have a gun. And they're going to be really mad at LeBron. It might cost him a lot of money. On the other hand, he has a lot of money, doesn't he?
Yeah, I would say I don't believe, that I don't think anybody's going to fire him. He's not, as far as like not ever playing a game in basketball ever again. I think that the larger conversation, the biggest point is that African Americans have extreme cultural capital in their bodies, meaning, in their play in sports and different things like that. If he can make a stand now, if he decides to do that, then he sets precedent for everybody that comes behind him. These kids who come from these impoverished neighborhoods, who already have a responsibility to the people that, have hoisted them in the air in their prominence. So I believe him sitting out will start a conversation among young athletes. There's somebody right now that's 16 years old that's windmill dunking in the gym, and all he's thinking about is basketball. Everybody in his neighborhood has told him about basketball. Maybe a few people that, had told him about his education and all the other things he can be, that he's a dynamic individual. But for the most part, these kids see themselves as strictly athletes who are using their body as capital. This social justice statement makes them start saying, hey, I'm more. I can stand up for this. I can stand up for that. And if I see something, I'm going to use my platform to bring awareness to it. And that's revolutionary, to be honest with you. It would be like the times when, when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown and those guys got together and rallied behind Muhammad Ali, in protest and making a statement. So he would be, championing that type of cause. And that's remarkable.
Yeah, and I think I came up with an interesting idea here as we were talking. Maybe he comes out and plays 2 seconds of the game. The statement being 2 seconds is not enough, right? And by the way, it's not just for black people. I don't want white kids being shot in 2 seconds. And the problem is the police training, right? Of course, we don't want anybody shot in 2 seconds. But the police are trained. Don't take any chances. Don't take any chances. Don't ask if it's a kid. Don't ask if it's a toy gun. Don't ask anything. Just shoot first. And then you had Jonathan Crawford also shot in Ohio at a Walmart, also with a toy gun. Also, the cops didn't ask a question. They just shot him. I mean, you want to talk, it's the training throughout the city, throughout the country. In Miami, a white guy, yeah, he robbed a bank. I got it. But he's shirtless. And he grabbed a blade from a barber shop, but he's nowhere near the cops. Nowhere near him, right? Boom, they shoot him dead. He's just standing there. The homeless white guy in New Mexico, just standing there, shot dead. Somebody's got to bring attention to it and go, give me a little bit more than 2 seconds before you shoot me. So maybe that's the way to go. But speaking of which, let me ask that question. How about white players? Does Kevin Love in Cleveland have a responsibility too to say, hey, you know what? I don't care that I'm white or black or whatever I am. I'm also pissed that Tamir Rice was shot in 2 seconds.
I believe if he chooses to do that, more power to him. We're not taking, any particular side and bringing awareness to these issues. So if he wants to gather these folks, then that's no problem, and have them set out. If he can champion that cause, then absolutely. I want to say about 5 days before I actually, started the hashtag No Justice, No LeBron, I had added at least 10 to 15 NFL players when the Sandra Bland, when the killers of Sandra Bland didn't get indicted. And what ended up happening was nobody said anything. Nobody made a peep. Nobody tried to argue me on the point. It didn't catch fire. It didn't go viral or anything like that. When I decided to go ahead and single out one person who may have the platform to go ahead and bring attention to this, everybody went crazy, whether they were for it or not for it. So I think, the biggest thing is, okay, maybe LeBron is the person that could do it, that could get the NBA to come together and have it sit out or do something like that, or sit out himself. But we're not looking for any, one savior. I think that's the point I would like to get across, is that if the guy on the street, if the guy in the front office or whoever it is wants to start, shedding this huge light on these issues, by all means. So if that's white players, fine. I do think, though, this is a big moment for him, right? This not only puts you down in the record books of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's and Bill Russell's and Michael Jordan's and all these folks, it also puts you down in the record books with the Jim Browns, like I said, and the Paul Robesons and the Jesse Owens. It also does that for you, and it probably one of the biggest moments we ever seen in our life.
Right. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was involved in a lot of activism as well, but so was Bill Walton. Both went to UCLA, and Bill Walton was a terrific activist, not just on the Vietnam War, but also on civil rights issues. So, and if Love wants to lead it and LeBron follows, even better, right, in some ways, because it gets more people involved. So now I get it. I was going to ask you also, do Bears and Bulls have responsibilities in Chicago with Laquan McDonald? So why not ask Matt Forte, who was a good running back, great running back actually, to do it in Chicago? But I, based on your answer, I get it. LeBron is, if he's going to be King James, well, that comes also with some responsibility, right?
Yeah, if you there's a King James Bible, right? That's a lot of pressure to be calling yourself, and I think you had to do everything that comes with the guy that they talk the most about, in the Bible. And if we believe, we're supposed to be acting, like he did, what would he do? What type of decisions would he make? And we don't want to. I don't want to ever take away from the things he's already done. 1,100 kids going to community college. I'm from West Baltimore, and that would change the lives of zip codes, to be honest. But at the same time, people, if we're going to regard you as the king, the people are always going to ask more of the king. So, I think about even like in the Godfather movie when, the beginning of it, when they're asking him for favors and different things like that. He's the Godfather. He's trying to enjoy the wedding. People are constantly coming in. Hey, I need this. Hey, I need that. That's the nature of leadership. It's 24/7, 365 days a year, every minute of the day. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that somebody could have came out and started a hashtag right after me or before me, that they will request him to make some type of stand in this case when you have a killing of a child in an open carry state with a toy gun, when you have kids all day long running around with BB guns all across this country. And also, he died in 1.5 seconds flat. I don't even like to use 2 seconds. It was 1.5 seconds flat that they made the decision that he was a black boy. He presented as tall, as bigger than usual, which is always, the excuse. And they perceived him as a threat, or so they say. And then they went ahead and just murdered him within 1.5 seconds. So I think that happening disrupted the comfort of that family, of the Rice family, for sure. So naturally, we need to make sure that other people are having, their comfort disrupted to a degree so that they understand that, the gravity of what's happening every 28 hours in this country.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much to ask for, and I'm a basketball fan, but I don't think it's too much to ask for to have one basketball game interrupted, or even 5, so that we can care about our kids, so that they don't get killed like this. I know when I was a kid, I played with toy guns all the time, and I didn't get murdered for it. One last thing: what kind of traction are you getting here on No Justice, No LeBron, and what happens next with it?
I mean, honestly, so if he or others or who else is in the sports world who has a platform, if they decide to do it, then I would be in awe like everybody else, in awe. If they don't, then life continues on. There are programs being ran in all these different cities that are trying to assist the youth. There are other people who are championing this fight for social justice and to stop state-sanctioned killings. I think as far as traction, the biggest thing that I want out of this, one, is for them to seriously consider a sit-out. That's number one. Number two, we start having larger conversations and building different organizations where, black athletes, and maybe even athletes in general, constantly have agendas and conversations where they leverage their body capital in boycotting and protest and different things like that, so that whatever issue it may be, it may not be police killing today, it may be, the water crisis in Michigan, so that they saying, hey, look, if this is happening, if business is going to continue as usual, then we're not going to continue this business as usual until you decide to fix things that, I won't say they're not easily fixable, right? It's not easy just to fix racist cops. It's not easy just to fix this conveyor belt of killing black and brown people. But what is easy, what would be more easy is trying to focus on the ideology behind it. Trying to bring light to what type of mindset are these police going into these neighborhoods with, where they see these kids and these young men and these young women as threats 24/7. I think that's easy to have a paradigm shift where we say, you know what, this is a problem. It's the same thing happened when somebody, is going through a degenerative disease and they realize, like, hey, I'm going to die. The paradigm shift of their mind happens very, very quickly. And either they decide to fix it, and they decide to go seek some help, or they let it eat away at them. And right now, you got one side of the country letting it eat away, and you got another side of the country just letting it, trying to, do their best to fix these things. So I think, that's what, I would like to see.
Yeah, and I hear you on that. So my final thought on it is you got to pick a side. It's true. Either you're okay with this state of affairs where the police training is obvious that they shoot first, ask questions later, and yes, it definitely disproportionately affects black men, unarmed black men, young black men are killed at 25 times the rate that unarmed white men are. So it's definitely disproportionate, but it does affect us all, and we got to fix it. And you're either on the side of fixing it or you're on the side of doing nothing. And so I think LeBron's got an important decision to make. So as MLK Day approaches and beyond, interesting to see how he responds to hashtag No Justice, No LeBron. For bringing that to the forefront, I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for joining us on the Young Turks.
No problem. Thank you as well.
All right, appreciate it. Good luck to you.